Thirsty Sword Lesbians is a tabletop RPG that's all about fighting tyranny, feeling deep emotions, and yes, disaster lesbians. Whether you're playing because you want to fight oppression, or you want an excuse to flirt with your friends, or even if you just want a taste of the queer experience that might not feel safe in your everyday life, well, TSL is a safe space for you. Hello, everyone. I'm Celtic to Nephew. You can call me Celtic. You can call me D. My pronouns are she, her, and I have been a game master over on StartPlaying.games for over a year now. I have had the joy and privilege to run numerous Thirsty Sword Lesbian one-shots with friends, with strangers who became friends. In that time, I've learned the foolproof way to get the most out of your session. So stick around if you want to find out how. When I first tried to run Thirsty Sword Lesbians, it was my first Powered by the Apocalypse game. So I have to admit, my first game as a game master wasn't very good. My players had fun, but I knew I was missing something. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went to StartPlaying.games and I booked a session with a professional who could teach me how to play. Like a lot of other Powered by the Apocalypse games, TSL puts emotion first. Everything about the game is built around exploring emotions, whether it's gaining conditions instead of losing hit points in a fight, or moves specifically meant to give support to another player, or even the fact that there's a move to become smitten with someone. So by avoiding these emotional ties, I was really only half playing the game. It was supposed to be a one-shot, and I just picked my character at random. Oh, no one's playing the spooky witch? Cool. Her name? Clementine. I wasn't really trying to dive in deeply and feel great emotions. I was just like, oh, hey, I want to run this game better, so teach me how to play. The relationships really are at the heart of TSL, even if they do have an abysmally small description in the rulebook. I'm going to throw down a hot take here and say that if you're not building good connections before you start playing your game isn't going to feel as satisfying as it could be. I think a good TSL session keeps the relationships at the heart, at the center of the session. And the thing is you can't build good relationships if you don't know who the characters are. And that's why choosing the right playbook is really important. But how do you do that? You lean into conflict. The playbooks from TSL represent different lesbian archetypes. And yes, there's more than just butch and femme. It makes the game really easy to pick up and play because, for the most part, everything you need is already built into the character. The basic rulebook has 9 archetypes, like the flirty scoundrel, or the chosen hero, or even the infamous. These archetypes tend to be fairly broad, which makes them really easy to just pick up and play. The expansion, Advanced Lesbians and Lovers, has 10 more playbooks to choose from, though those tend to be more directed and pointed in their tropes and conflicts. No matter which playbook you choose, it's really important to want to lean into the internal struggles and conflicts of the playbook. That's where the meat of the game is. But a lot of players, especially new players, don't even read the conflicts. They don't really pay attention to the archetypes. They choose based on maybe the cool art or the fun name. At least that's what I did. For that first session, I had picked my character for the wrong reasons. I hadn't looked into the archetype or the conflicts. My dear sweet Clementine started off as more of a supporting character. She was the quirky best friend. I really leaned into the comic relief rather than the conflicts that are inherent in the playbook itself. Heck, I didn't even acknowledge the conflicts existed until I was trying to explain it to someone else. Every character has like this emotional conflict they have to deal with. And, for example, my spooky witch, she thinks she's just too weird to be loved, and she's just going to learn When I said the words out loud, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I've seen other players make the same mistake. I've seen folks say they want to play the scoundrel, but what they really want to explore is what it feels like to be from a deeply religious background. They're not ready to lean into the heat of the moment. I knew another player that chose the trickster, but she seemed to think the trickster was more like Jester from Critical Role. Oh, she's just playing funny pranks again. But the trickster is supposed to be cold and calculating. When people make this mistake, they tend to hold back a little and play. They rarely use playbook moves. Sometimes they don't even use basic moves. It's sort of like they're wearing clothes that don't fit. It's slightly uncomfortable and makes them hold back a little. As a storyteller, I know it's crucial to lean into conflicts. Even in D&D, players want some level of difficulty. They want something that they can overcome. Challenge enhances the experience and elevates the narrative. But it wasn't until I said those words out loud that I realized that I wasn't leaning into the conflict of my character. Eventually, I got there. I'm not gonna lie, it was really awkward at first. I had to let Clementine's walls of humor down and allow her to be vulnerable around her friends, which made me feel exposed. I had to come to terms with my own feelings of being too weird to be loved. But those sessions were incredibly amazing and totally worth it. My Clementine ended up getting closer with Genevieve, the group's seeker, and a daughter of one of the noble families that we were fighting against. Despite their very different upbringings and outlooks on life, Genevieve treated my girl as if she were special and not weird. She appreciated the things Clementine could do that no one else could. And that changed my girl from kooky best friend to an appreciated member of the team. And eventually, Clementine got a little smitten. It's amazing how being respected for who you are can make someone feel. Unfortunately, that campaign ended before I ever found out if Clementine's feelings were more than a little crush or if they were reciprocated. But for me, it was enough to experience that part of the game. A part I never would have opened myself up to if I hadn't started leaning into what makes the Spooky Witch interesting and allowed her conflicts to show up in the game. In the many one-shots I've run over the last year, I've seen the same pattern over and over and over again. The players who embrace the conflict, not only their own playbooks, but also the themes and conflicts of the other playbooks in the sessions. Those players have the most fun. They're the most hyped during the Stars and Wishes phase, and they are the most likely to play with me again. So don't just grab any old playbook. Pick one that resonates for how you want to play in the session. This can vary. Don't feel like you have to stick with the same one just because you vibed that one time. Maybe in a one-shot, you want to play the sexy scoundrel who's here to break hearts and forget names. But in a longer campaign, you want to mark your progress by breaking commandments as a seeker. The setting could matter. Maybe you want to play the infamous playbook as a defector of the Void Legion in the Starcross Galaxy. But the group chose the Lesbians Coffee House, and you're like, infamous doesn't sound good. A nature witch from the Foxhole Woods. Oh, that's what I want to do. Actually wanting to explore the themes and central conflict of each playbook is essential for you and your fellow players to get the most out of a session of TSL. It drives the narrative forward and creates the tension and drama that we all really need from a group of angsty lesbians. And if you're ready to lean into the messy, disaster lesbian angst, come join me on Start Playing. I try to run one-shots at least once a month, and you can find the link in the description.